Avery Collins had packed everything except the sewing tin. Her clothes, sketchbooks, and costume patterns filled 2 suitcases on the floor of dorm 4B. The temporary suspension notice lay, face down on her stripped mattress. Westbridge, School for the Arts, had suspended her from residential housing and withdrawn its recommendation to the National Theatre Conservatory. The notice listed costume sabotage, unauthorized entry into the production laundry room, and falsified curfew records. Outside room 407, suitcase wheels rattled over the tile and voices dropped. Madison Hale's side of the room remained untouched, a garment bag hanging from the closet handle like a trophy. Madison stood beside it in rehearsal leggings and a Westbridge sweatshirt. "I told the conduct panel I didn't actually see you cut anything," she said. Avery looked at the garment bag. Inside was the rebuilt crimson coat chosen for Westbridge's national touring showcase. She had designed the offset collar, the hidden weight supports, and the removable train. Madison's name now appeared alone on the official submission. "You also told them the design was yours," Avery said. Madison turned her phone face down. "Ms. Ward said the judges needed one clear student designer. You missed fittings. You kept changing things. People noticed." "I missed fittings because I stayed up repairing your pieces." Madison glanced toward the open door. "Keep your voice down." The words pulled Avery back 3 months. Madison had returned after midnight from a secret off-campus audition. At the costume laundry checkpoint, the dorm supervisor saw 2 students on camera. Madison feared the violation would reach her parents, who had threatened to pull her out of school. Avery had said the trip was hers. She claimed she had forgotten a pattern case and convinced Madison to help retrieve it. The violation went on Avery's record. Madison had promised it would never matter. Now, Evelyn Ward, Westbridge's costume director, appeared in the doorway carrying a black portfolio folder. Students trusted Ms. Ward because she remembered birthdays and fixed broken zippers during performances. "Avery," she said softly, "the rideshare voucher expires in 40 minutes. My aunt can't get here until tonight. Residential Life has arranged a supervised guest room until then. I didn't damage those costumes." Ms. Ward's expression remained patient. "The card reader shows your student ID. Entered the laundry room at 11:38 p.m. The damaged pieces were discovered before breakfast. My ID was in my desk. The conduct panel also reviewed your previous curfew violation. They have to consider patterns." Madison studied the carpet. Ms. Ward lifted Avery's torn uniform jacket from the back of a chair. One sleeve had split that morning when a campus security aide pulled her away from the costume rack. "I'll hold on to this until the investigation is complete," Ms. Ward said. Avery reached for it, but the director had already folded it over her arm. "Madison should stay out of this," Ms. Ward added. "Her touring fellowship decision is tomorrow, and speculation could destroy 2 students instead of 1. She left with the jacket, Madison, followed 10 minutes later without packing a single box. Sewing tin remained on Avery's desk. It had belonged to her mother, who altered restaurant uniforms at their kitchen table after working all day at a dry cleaner. After the funeral, Avery's aunt returned the dented tin with its needles, tailor's chalk, spare buttons, and one spool of silver thread Avery had never seen before. She slipped it into her backpack. Suspended students waited in a monitored guest room with a vinyl mattress, a security camera, and no inside lock. At 10:14 that night, someone knocked twice. Ethan Brooks stood in the hallway holding a coil of audio cable and a paper cup from the vending area. He was 18, lived in the neighboring boys' residence, and ran sound for Westbridge Productions. Black tape looped around one wrist. "You left these in the booth," he said, handing her fabric shears. "They searched my station. They missed the drawer under the amp rack. You can get written up for being here. I'm fixing the intercom outside the guest room. The intercom had not worked since September. Ethan set the drink on the floor between them. The theater sound system ran a sync test at 11:41 last night. Someone opened the laundry room door 3 seconds before the fabric alarm disconnected. Can it show who? No, it only logged the time. He checked the security camera. But your ID record says 11:38. Those systems are supposed to match. Can you save the timestamp? I already exported the diagnostic file. Footsteps sounded near the stairwell. Ethan lifted the cable. Why are you helping me? Avery asked. He glanced at the frayed cuff of her blouse. Because you build cable openings into every costume so I don't have to cut through your work. He moved toward the broken intercom, before the night supervisor rounded the corner. Back inside, Avery noticed a tear in her cuff from the morning search. She opened the sewing tin, threaded the needle with silver, and pulled the first stitch through. A woman's voice spoke beside her ear. Avery volunteered to take responsibility for the curfew violation. The needle slipped from her hand. The room was empty. The voice had been Ms. Ward's, calm and unmistakable, but the statement was false. Avery had spoken only after Madison began shaking and Ms. Ward looked directly at her. Avery stared at the repaired cuff until the hallway lights dimmed for quiet hours. At breakfast, she opened the student portal and typed, "Ms. Ward lied about the curfew meeting." The sentence stopped after Ms. Ward. Her fingers moved, but no letters appeared. She tried writing the rest on a napkin. The pen dragged over the paper without leaving ink. When she whispered the sentence, her voice failed after the director's name. Other facts came easily. Only that truth would not leave her. At 10:14 a.m., exactly 12 hours after the stitch, she typed the sentence again. Every word appeared. Avery read it twice, then opened the sewing tin. The thread had replayed a lie attached to a torn garment. The cost had taken the first truth she tried to communicate afterward. Her mother used to say, "Clothes remembered the person inside them." Avery had thought she meant faded cuffs and stretched knees. By noon, campus security allowed her to collect class materials under supervision. Madison was at rehearsal. A torn practice skirt hung over Madison's chair. The hem had ripped during dance call 2 days earlier. Avery shut the door, repaired it with silver thread, and waited. Madison's voice filled the room. I never touched Avery's ID. The replay ended. Avery grabbed her phone and tried to message Ethan. Madison used my ID. The screen accepted Madison used, then refused the rest. She deleted the fragment. The power gave her direction, not evidence. Worse, it could silence the exact facts she needed. Madison's ID sat beside her laptop, but Avery's was missing. Above the desk, a printed fellowship schedule listed Madison's private sponsor interview at 10:45 on the night of the sabotage. If Madison stayed through the interview, someone else had carried Avery's ID. Avery photographed the schedule. That truth remained available because she had not tried to share it before the cost settled. She found Ethan in the scene shop at lunch, testing wireless microphones. Unable to tell him what Madison had done, she asked about the dorm security system instead. The student ID reader stores entry time, he said. The door controller stores unlock time. The fabric alarm stores motion. 3 separate systems. Could one person alter all 3? Not a student. Staff credentials could override 2 of them. Ethan noticed the silver thread wrapped around Avery's finger. You're bleeding. A needle mark darkened her thumb. He placed a bandage beside her hand. You notice damage after everyone else leaves, he said. Damage is easier when it stays where you put it. He looked at her for a second longer than necessary. The overhead rehearsal speakers snapped on before either of them spoke again. That afternoon, Avery filed a systems discrepancy using Ethan's timestamp. Residential Life paused the final removal decision and ordered an internal review. For 6 hours, the school appeared ready to correct itself. Then Madison posted in the senior dorm group chat. I tried to protect Avery because she has been struggling since her mom died. I can't stay silent while she blames teachers and students for choices she made. Screenshots spread beyond the dorm. Avery's missed meals and old curfew violation became evidence of instability. Ms. Ward submitted a photograph of the damaged crimson coat beside Avery's shears. Campus. Security found the diagnostic file on Ethan's personal drive and removed him from the touring crew. Avery found him outside the locked booth, peeling his name label from a road case. I'm sorry, she said. You didn't copy the file. I brought you into this. You asked whether the timestamp existed. I decided what to do with it. He folded the label and slipped it into his pocket. But the file only proves the clocks disagree. It doesn't prove who changed them. Through the booth window, Avery saw the headset Ms. Ward had worn during the sponsor interview. Its fabric band had split and been wrapped with black tape. Avery borrowed it under the excuse of checking whether the band snagged costume collars. In the guest room, she removed the tape and repaired the tear with silver thread. Ms. Ward's voice returned. The audit will only examine student logs. The sponsor doesn't need to know who carried the ID. Avery gripped the headset. She tried to type. Ms. Ward carried my ID. The cost stopped her after carried. Panic made her careless. She tried copied words, speech to text, and handwritten initials. Every route failed, and the reporting form generated a security alert. Ms. Ward arrived with campus security before Avery could hide the headset. You removed school equipment, she said. Avery pointed to the repaired band. Ms. Ward examined the silver seam. Her expression tightened, though she said nothing about it. Security confiscated the sewing tin. Ms. Ward requested Avery's immediate removal from campus for tampering with production equipment. Avery's aunt was called away from a hospital shift to collect her. In the parking lot, the conservatory portal changed, Avery's status from withdrawn to ineligible. The false victory had cost Ethan his position and put the only useful tool in Ms. Ward's hands. Madison waited near the lobby trophy case. My parents will pull me out if I lose the fellowship, she said. They already paid for the sponsor dinner, the portfolio video, everything. I didn't know Ms. Ward would suspend you. You knew she used my ID. Madison's shoulders drew inward. I knew she said the school would handle it. And the costumes? I cut the inner supports. She said the judges needed to see that your construction was unreliable before the authorship review. Avery studied the perfect collar of Madison's blazer, a small tear hid beneath one shoulder pin. You could tell the truth. If I lose this, I go home. You have no idea what that means. Avery looked toward the office where Ms. Ward had taken the sewing tin. I know exactly what it means to let someone else pay for your escape. Her aunt entered before Madison answered. That night, Avery rebuilt the case at the kitchen table using ordinary records. Westbridge's Provenance server stored device IDs and revision histories. Touring rules required inspectors to open load-bearing seams, while staff access to student housing triggered sponsor review. The mandatory pre-tour inspection was scheduled for 7:30 the next morning. Avery could not enter campus as a student, but school safety rules applied regardless of her status. From her aunt's email, she requested preservation of the costume files, raw door data, sponsor declarations, and the crimson coat. She attached Ethan's timestamp and Madison's interview schedule. Then she filed a formal safety complaint stating that structural supports had been deliberately Cut Westbridge policy required an inspection before the touring van could leave. At 7:30 a.m., inspectors sealed the residential theater workshop. Avery arrived with her aunt as the complainant. She carried no sewing tin and used no power. The crimson coat lay on a steel work table. Madison stood beside Ms. Ward. Ethan waited near the sound rack because his timestamp had become part of the evidence. An inspector opened the coat's lining. Beneath Madison's newer stitching, the seam allowances carried Avery's hand-coded marks and dated construction labels. The provenance server matched them to uploads from Avery's tablet months before Madison's first file appeared. Next came the raw door data. Avery's ID had unlocked the laundry room, but the staff override token belonged to Ms. Ward. Sponsor records showed that Ms. Ward had declared no involvement in student housing access. The token could have been copied, Ms. Ward said. Avery placed Madison's sponsor schedule on the table, then compared the dorm checkpoint camera with the interview footage. Madison's breath caught. The sponsor footage showed her in the interview room until 11:52. At 11:37, a hooded figure with Ms. Ward's height and walk crossed the dorm checkpoint carrying Avery's ID. The face was unclear, but Ms. Ward's override token opened the service door seconds later. The same institution that had treated Avery's history as a pattern now applied that reasoning to Ms. Ward's. Records op board members questioned the director while IT preserved the servers. The sponsor requested a review of every related credit decision. Madison spoke before anyone asked her. "I cut the supports," she said. "Ms. Ward told me the damage would look like weak construction. She said Avery's old curfew violation would make it believable." Ms. Ward turned toward her. "Think carefully about what you're saying. I have been thinking about it for months." Madison opened her phone and produced messages she had kept because she feared her parents would deny everything if the plan failed. The text showed Ms. Ward arranging the sponsor interview, demanding one marketable student designer, and instructing Madison not to defend Avery. The real plan had never been only about a fellowship. Ms. Ward wanted a major donor to renew funding. Madison came from a connected family and looked ideal in promotional material. Avery was talented, exhausted, grieving, and easy to remove from the public story. Avery remembered the first disciplinary meeting, Ms. Ward taking her torn jacket for safekeeping, warning Madison not to become involved, and guiding the panel toward Avery's old curfew violation. Ms. Ward had known the silver thread. Years earlier, Avery's mother had repaired costumes for Westbridge as a contract seamstress. The director had recognized the spool and understood enough to fear what a repaired garment might reveal. That was why she took the jacket. That was why she confiscated the tin without hesitation. Before noon, the board restored Avery's authorship, housing eligibility, and conservatory recommendation. Ethan returned to the touring crew. Madison lost the fellowship, but was allowed to finish the year after accepting responsibility and surrendering the false portfolio. Ms. Ward was dismissed for record manipulation, student coercion, retaliation, and undisclosed sponsor interference. Westbridge scheduled a public apology in the main theater. Avery did not attend. 2 weeks later, she moved into a narrow room above a stationery store near a city bus line. The windows rattled, but the door locked from the inside. Ethan carried her sewing machine up 3 flights of stairs. "You could have asked me to take the lighter box," he said at the landing. "I did. You asked after lifting the heavier one." She noticed the black tape still looped around his wrist. "You kept the label from the road case." His fingers touched his pocket. "You noticed." Avery opened the apartment door. They stopped in the narrow frame, each waiting for the other to move. A delivery scooter sounded below. and Ethan shifted the sewing machine to let her pass. On the desk, Avery placed her mother's sewing tin. Westbridge had returned it sealed in an evidence bag. The silver thread remained inside. She left the lid closed. Her conservatory recommendation rested beside a new portfolio, carrying her name and complete revision history. On the wall, she pinned a photograph of the crimson coat with the lining exposed and every hidden mark visible. The Academy's apology began at noon without her. At 12:07, her phone filled with statements, interview requests, and invitations to return to the dorm. Avery turned the phone face down and threaded ordinary black cotton through the sewing machine. Outside, students crossed toward the bus stop with instrument cases and garment bags. Ethan tested the foot pedal while Avery guided clean fabric beneath the needle. The stitch held without silver thread, and she did not need a hidden voice to know who the work belonged to.